A deadly shotgun expertly engineered using bedposts and batteries. A powerful and complex crossbow that utilized rubber gloves and toothbrushes. Or what about a potentially life-taking bomb that looked like an innocent magic marker? The ingenuity of prisoners is sometimes nothing short of mind-boggling, as you'll now see in all its bloody glory. Number 12. We're going to start with something that sounds like fiction dreamed up by a Hollywood screenwriter, but we promise you, every word of this tale is true. It's a story starring a silent killer who got the nickname the meanest man in America. His real name was Donald Henry Gaskins, and yes, he was one mean man indeed. He was also pretty good with his hands. Gaskins was a piece of work if there ever was one, but we won't go into detail about all of his crimes. In short, he lived a life of violent crime and murdered 15 people, although it's possible he could have killed many more. He was sent to prison to serve 9 concurrent life sentences, and that's when he got creative with weapon building. The reason he did it was because someone on the outside, a man named Tony Simo, wanted another man dead because this other man had murdered his mother and stepfather during a robbery. This killer's name was Rudolph Tyner. In 1982, Simo managed to smuggle in strychnine and cyanide to Gaskins. These substances only made Tyner ill, not dead. So Gaskins and Simo were forced to get more creative. Then, during one visit, Gaskins said to Simo, "You get me a damn stick of dynamite, an electric blasting cap, and we'll put that damn thing in a radio so when he turns it on, it'll blow him to hell, and there won't be no coming back on that." Later, during a visit, Simo secretly passed some C4 explosives to Gaskins. Gaskins proceeded to rig the explosives into a cup and put that inside a small radio. He then connected the radio to the lead so the thing looked like part of a walkie-talkie. When he was done, Gaskins approached Tyner and said something along the lines of, "Hey, I made this real cool walkie-talkie, and if you take one end into your cell, we'll be able to chat with each other." He added, "You're going to need to put it really close to your ear." And that's what Tyner was doing when Gaskins pulled the cord and detonated the bomb, with the media later saying he pretty much blew Tyner's head off. At the time, Gaskins was said to be rolling around in his cell laughing his own head off. He wasn't laughing so much in 1991 when he was fried in the electric chair. As for Simo, he got 8 years in prison himself for contracting the killing, but he thought it was worth it, later saying, "I don't feel the good Lord holds nothing against me for this." As you'll now see, sometimes you don't need high-tech tools to kill a person. Number 11. You've all heard of shivs, regular types of knives made in prison. These things are 2 a penny, and the problem with shivs is you have to be up close to someone to kill them, or at least wound them badly. So why not make a spear? That's exactly what some prisoners have done in the past. It just takes a bit more patience. But hey, prisoners generally have a lot of time on their hands. What they do is use paper from magazines or newspapers and wet it and constantly roll it, and they can make it a tough handle that's sometimes a few feet long. They rip off bits of clothing and wrap that around the handle to make it even more sturdy. The head of the spear is often made from bits of steel that have been taken from a bed. Prisoners have been known to use dental floss and binder clips to cut through beds, which takes a lot of time but can be sped up by using certain powders. It's not hard to find instances when such weapons were used, but a standout case was the murder of a prison officer named Howell Birchfield. On June 8, 1985, he was walking past cells at San Quentin Prison in California when he was stabbed through the heart with what the LA Times described as a spear. That same article talked about a powerful cache of plastic and powder explosives being smuggled into another prison. So we think now we'll talk about bombs again. This one particular bomb being a very strange device indeed. Number 10. On October 31, 1995, a court security officer came across a package at the United States Courthouse in Chicago, addressed to Judge Blanche Manning. The package was put through an X-ray machine, and what was seen was described like this: a D-sized battery with 2 wires hooked to the battery at one end and a cylindrical tube at the other end, and 2 wires leading to a section of the package that was not visible. The courthouse was immediately sealed off, and explosive experts were called in. It was soon discovered that the device was what's sometimes called a victim-actuated device, meaning it would only go off if someone opened the package. What's amazing is what the bomb was made out of. The outside looked like a book, but inside the hollowed-out book was a magic marker full of match heads connected to a battery and some cords. As the battery was live, if someone had opened the package, the bomb would have exploded and very likely caused a grievous injury. The bomb maker was a convicted murderer named Peter Saunders, a man who later said he had hated the judge due to how his appeal had been dealt with, on top of him not being given what he said was enough medical care. He admitted that he wanted the judge dead, but said he did worry that someone else might open the package and get hurt. While an investigation later revealed that the device would have likely not killed anyone, it certainly might have taken a handoff. As for where Saunders got his bomb-making skills, well, as you'll now see, there's a good reason one name for prison is crime school. Number 9. We can only find one instance of inmates making a flamethrower, but we think it's worth a mention. The story comes from a 1995 newspaper story that involved an interview with C.T. O'Reilly, who at the time was the assistant warden of Darrington Prison in Texas. He said there'd been a problem in the prison, which at first just looked like the prisoners had been drinking a lot of coffee. That's because all that coffee mate was being brought up at an astonishing speed. Not for drinking, though. O'Reilly explained in an interview, the inmates would roll up a piece of paper, put coffee mate in it, put a cigarette lighter in front of it, blow it out, and it's just like a flamethrower. If you think that coffee mate wouldn't work in this regard, think again. It was proven in an episode of Mythbusters that this powder could cause a fair bit of damage once ignited, and so can homemade guns, as you'll now see. Number 8. One of the most simple kinds of homemade guns you can make is called a zip gun, which combines a metal tube and some kind of crude firing mechanism. An expert at making these was Mark DeFriest, a U.S. man who was sent to prison on a minor charge, but after trying to escape 13 times, with 7 successes, he stayed in prison for 39 years. This Houdini of a man likely suffered from autism spectrum disorder, and it made his life hard in prison, which is the reason he so badly wanted to get out. In one escape attempt, he sent a number of officers round the bend after spiking their drinks with LSD. In another attempt, he managed to get his hands on some copper sheets while he was in the prison workshop. His first thought was, man, these guys must really want me to escape. He used the copper top to make a barrel connected to a handle he fashioned out of wood. When the day of the escape came, he sneaked an ice pick into his cell and ripped out one of his teeth. That's how he was able to go see the prison nurse. When no one was looking, he picked off his handcuffs, then pulled out his homemade gun, shouting, "Anybody move and I'll blow your brains out." He fired a shot at the wall just to show how the gun was the real deal, and after that took off into the nearby woods. Alas, his escape didn't last long, but he decided it was time to make another gun when he was back inside. He later said in an interview, "I was in my gunsmith phase. I could make a gun out of anything." This time, he used an empty tube of toothpaste, although exactly how has not been made clear. In DeFriest's own words, he said, "There's an art to everything." This time again, he shot at the wall to show how the gun worked, but even though that shot wasn't even close to any officers, he was later charged with attempted murder and spent a long time in what's been described as torturous solitary confinement. DeFriest was so good at making things that they kept him naked in a dark cell for a long time, not even giving him toiletries or eating utensils. Now let's talk about shotguns and a bit of prison engineering that's frankly outstanding. Number 7. Even Mark DeFriest would have been impressed had he heard the story about an inmate making a powerful shotgun from simple things he'd found in prison. It happened at Justizvollzugsanstalt in Germany, a prison that's been around since 1710. On May 21, 1984, 2 inmates there took a guard hostage, with one of them brandishing what was and still is arguably the most advanced prison-made gun of all time. Suffice to say, no one does it like the Germans when it comes to engineering. To make the gun, the inmates had utilized 2 steel bedposts. The charge was made with lead from some curtains, and the explosive came from match heads. To ignite that, AA batteries and a broken light bulb were used. Okay, so that sounds impressive, but did it work? Yes, it did, and we know that because the prisoners fired the gun. After that, they were allowed to leave the prison yard, from where they made their getaway in a car. If this story can't get any crazier, the media reported that the guy driving the car was a policeman, and he had bombs tied to his neck. The inmate with the skills was named Peter Strudinger, who was in prison for attempted manslaughter. He and the other guy were picked up the next day and sent back. Although around 1 decade later, news reports detailed how Strudinger had escaped again, and this time was driving around Germany in a stolen Porsche with a hostage at his side. Again, he'd used a homemade gun to get out. We're gonna stick with Germany for a minute and talk about what has to be the coolest weapon ever created. Number 6. If a vampire hunter had a weapon in his pocket other than his faithful stake, we'd reckon he'd have a crucifix dagger, like the one found in Germany's Wolfenbüttel prison. We don't know much about this story other than the instrument was photographed among a collection of other weapons found in German prisons. This time, no one got out or hurt anyone. We don't know how it was made. We do know that since the dagger partly was hidden within wood, the potential killer in this case would have looked more pious than dangerous. Number 5. We'll give one last mention to a German-made weapon just because we haven't seen anything like it before. It can only be described as a whip made from razor blades, something that was confiscated in 1996 at Fuhlsbüttel jail in Hamburg. The inmate had apparently made it to use on a nurse who refused to give him any more methadone. The next kind of weapon would be funny if it wasn't deadly. Number 4. If you were in prison and you really wanted to hurt someone but you weren't very good with your hands, what do you think you'd do? Perhaps put some batteries or bars of soap in a sock? What about whacking someone in the face with the edge of your food tray? These 2 things are often the go-to weapons when one doesn't have the know-how to build something better. But we found another kind of weapon that anyone can make. That is, a good old-fashioned water bomb, aka water balloon. But before you start laughing, just think how much a large bag filled to the brim with water could weigh. It could weigh as much as 20 kilos, and if you dropped that kind of weight on someone's head from a decent height, there would be a good chance you could kill someone if not hurt them very badly. We can find one instance of this happening at San Quentin Prison in 2011. The water balloon in question was dropped from the 5th floor and hit a guy who was way down on another floor on the top of his head. The article said the victim was taken away in an ambulance with serious injuries and was lucky to be alive. Let's stick with almost amusing stories just for now, and soon we'll get to the most fascinating prison weapon we've seen. Number 3. This is another kind of weapon that anyone could create, and one that would afford a fair bit of enjoyment in the making since it's made out of candy. The candies in question are the notorious Jolly Rancher tablets. Word on the street is prisoners sometimes line up all the candies in a row, then wrap them in aluminum foil. The foil can then be heated and fashioned into a spike, and hey, presto, you have a knife straight out of a Brothers Grimm fairy tale. Not only that, once you've done the deed, you get to slowly enjoy making the hard evidence disappear. It sounds like make-believe, but there's some evidence of it happening from MSNBC's TV show Lockup. In the episode New Mexico Extended Stay, one prisoner had his candy privileges taken away because he'd made those Jolly Ranchers into a shiv. And yes, it's been proven that you could really hurt someone with a Jolly Rancher weapon. If you think you heard about this before, the Jolly Rancher shiv was featured in an episode of the TV prison drama Orange is the New Black. After hearing that, you won't be surprised to hear that prisoners have made nunchucks before. Number 2. In 2011, a guy named Lorenzo Pollard did just that. He was imprisoned at a medium security institution in St. Louis when he decided it was time to get out. All he needed was a weapon. And what better way to break out in style than fighting off a number of prison officers by swinging around a pair of homemade nunchucks? In terms of the creativity and the labor that goes into making a prison weapon, this one's pretty simple. Pollard just broke some bits of wood off a chair and connected them with a part of a bed sheet. He produced the weapon while being taken by officers to the shower block, after which he broke through a window and jumped 2 stories down to the outside. He got up, outran more guards, and proceeded to scale 2 razor wire fences. You'd think this guy was a serious criminal on some major charges, but he was actually only in for trespassing, theft, a bit of property damage, and resisting arrest. He should have done his time because he was picked up and sent back to prison after a few days, now with added charges. Now for the pièce de résistance, the inmate who made a complex crossbow. Number 1. The year was 1998, and one inmate at Canada's Stony Mountain Prison found himself with a lot of time on his hands in a dissociation cell. It seems he did at least have the basic necessities for prison life, out of which he made one of the most brilliant prison weapons in history. That was a powerful crossbow made out of what the prison described as follows: 10 toothbrushes, a cigarette lighter, a section of ballpoint pen casing, a piece of wire coat hanger, a section of a pair of aluminum cafeteria tongs, assorted electrical components, pieces of yellow rubber gloves, some Kleenex, a piece of string, and a few screws. The guy who made it wasn't named, and he never actually got to use it, which is probably a good thing, since when the staff at the prison tested the device, they watched in shock as it fired homemade arrows 40 feet. The prisoner had made them from tightly packed toilet paper and aluminum foil, and with that excellent crossbow, they could have easily killed someone. The crossbow is now on display with many other inferior weapons at Canada's Penitentiary Museum. Now you need to learn a lot more disturbing things about prison with 50 things nobody tells you about being in prison.